One evening, Marie was expected to corral the men and march them from A building to the Hugh Young building. Marie would walk the men from A building through underground crossways that connected the patients' living areas to the massive U-shaped structure known as the Hugh Young building, or HY, as employees called it. Hugh Young was the son of a Confederate brigadier general and one of the physicians on the Lunacy Commission who had pushed for the creation of Crownsville to relieve Negro patients from the poorhouses and almshouses across the state. Most of the time, Marie's patients sat around on wooden benches with nothing to do and nobody professional to talk to. She and everyone else was completely outnumbered. Marie's supervisors explained that they only bathed patients at nighttime on Saturdays. She looked around and noticed that there were only a few working toilets and communal showers, and asked, "How do you do the baths?" "Well, we mix up a bucket of soapy water," one of the men instructed Marie, "and we put the patient in the shower, and we throw the water in on the patient." Marie, always patient and polite, stood there quietly for a moment. "No washcloth?" Marie asked. "No washcloth," her supervisor confirmed. As part of the original hospital construction plan, many of A Building's facilities were outdated. Most rooms were dark, and some were even outfitted with bars like jail cells. Marie discovered that her colleagues had allowed patients to walk and sit around in soiled clothing for so long that the floors had become covered in matted feces. None of her coworkers had warned her about the excrement she'd been walking in. Over time, Marie and her friends developed small ways to show the patients affection and care. Armed with rubber dishwashing gloves, they would climb into Crownsville's crumbling communal showers. Instead of throwing the water on patients, they took soap and washcloths and helped those who couldn't bathe themselves. She would cut shoestrings and straw and bring them to the hospital to offer to patients who had been given hospital clothes that were too baggy. Many of the changes they implemented cost the hospital little beyond a bit of energy and attention to detail. It seemed to Marie as though white staff didn't care how exposed or humiliated the patients looked and felt. In 2022, I ate lunch with Marie and her friends, many of whom were in their 80s and 90s, and they laughed at the memory of one of Marie's supervisors, who seemed to be a villain to the Black nursing staff. Marie would ask him day after day for permission to take her patients outside, not off the grounds, just outside the building. Her patients had been stuck moving from dark room to basement to cafeteria and back, and some of the patients housed in A building hadn't been outside since they were first admitted. They hadn't breathed fresh air or felt the sun against their skin, unless they had been contracted out for work. Marie asked, and her supervisor consistently denied her requests, with little or no explanation, except that patients might attempt to escape. One day, he strolled into work announcing, "Marie, you got your wish. You can take the patients outside." Before he could change his mind, Marie rounded up as many patients as possible. The men walked slowly out into a courtyard enclosed by a chain-link fence. One patient, a man named Mr. Bell, walked through the doorway and into the open space. Mr. Bell stood still. With Marie at his side, he tilted his head all the way back and looked up in awe. "I'll be goddamned," he whispered. "There's the sky." Seeing Mr. Bell marvel at the clouds and sky brought Marie to tears. This place had taken so much from him. Something about that day stuck with Marie, and she began digging for more information about his life. Until then, all Marie knew was that Mr. Bell had a British accent. She asked around the hospital and found out that he had been brought to Crownsville by Marie's white supervisor. The supervisor had seen Bell hanging around looking lost in Baltimore one day. After speaking with him, he thought Bell sounded funny and was convinced he was using a fake accent. He put him in a car and brought him to the hospital. Marie said her supervisor childishly bragged about getting $25 in cash for the patient delivery. Former Crownsville employees, and even relatives of local law enforcement officers, have repeatedly described how they received money in exchange for bringing people to the hospital. It's part of what fueled the nightmares of Black Annapolitans, who used to worry about night doctors roaming the streets to bring someone to Crownsville under the cover of darkness. I have not been able to find any evidence of these transactions. There exist no receipts for payment or records describing a program of cash in exchange for patients, but several generations of employees and families shared these stories with me. Marie learned that Mr. Bell was not, in fact, faking his accent. He was from London. He told her that before coming to the United States, he had been a jockey and raced horses. Marie never found any information that indicated he had a formal diagnosis or had committed a crime. It sounded to her as though Mr. Bell had loitered around and had been stuck at Crownsville for the crime of being a black man lost in the city with a foreign accent. More than 60 years after she helped Mr. Bell see the sky again, Marie, now almost 90, sat with me dressed in her Sunday best. She could still remember every smell, every feeling of A Building. Discussing Mr. Bell still made her cry and visibly shake. A few years into Marie Goff's career at Crownsville, Joyce and Errol Phillip became two of the newest additions to the Black employee community at Crownsville. Dr. Errol Phillip immigrated to America from Trinidad and Tobago in